Welcome back, fight fans. And today we are getting set for another day of deep diving into the WMMA6 Developers Journal. This is day 9, and things just keep getting bigger and more detailed. We're getting more updates that will push the simulation even further into this sweet spot between the realism and chaos that World of Mixed Martial Arts is famous for. Day 9 brings another round of upgrades that shape how promotions grow, how fighters develop, and how the ecosystem behaves behind the scenes. Let me drink my Mountain Dew real quick. Okay. If you've been following along, you already know how World of Mixed Martial Arts 6, the comeback, is turning into an insane monster of a simulator. And day 9 is going to keep that momentum going. If you haven't and would like to check out the other entries, I have other videos that I've talked about the previous entries. So I'm going to get right into it. This is what Adam Ryland posted back in July 27th. Welcome to the WMMA6 Developers Journal. For those who haven't been with us for previous versions, the purpose of the journal is to reveal all the new features and modifications that will appear in the game so that you know what to expect before release. There will be a new entry every weekday for the next 4 weeks. And then there is an FAQ and a lot more to come at you. But we're going to go straight into day 9 of the Developer's Journal. All right, now we're going into the first entry, which is the narrative system upgrade. The narrative system has now been upgraded to match TEWs. This makes it far more powerful and in-depth and gives the database maker much more control. Being able to have multiple requirements and effects in play at once. Have a date range that it can trigger on rather than having to occur on one specific day, etc. Additionally, the narrative editor has been upgraded accordingly, breaking down all of the requirements and effects, explain and effects into subcategories for speed and ease of use. So the narrative system controls excuse me. The narrative system controls special events, storylines, world changes, and background happenings that shape the game world. In World of Mixed Martial Arts 5, this system existed, but it was very limited. What WMMA6 is doing is that it upgrades the narrative system to match the far more powerful Total Extreme Wrestling version, giving database creators much more control and allowing the game world to feel more dynamic and alive. So here's what's new. In WMMA 5, a narrative usually only had one simple trigger, or couple simple triggers. In WMMA 6, you can stack multiple conditions together, such as a specific date range, a fighter's popularity, how the company can sign fighters, a region's popularity, a title change, team's ranking, a fighter's nationality, and so much more. They're much more complex and realistic. There's multiple effects going on at once, such as changing popularity, altering relationships, adjusting hype, adding or removing fighters, shifting regional interest, triggering story events. In WMMA5, you are mostly limited to one effect per narrative. And there's date ranges instead of one specific day. There was narratives that were to trigger on an exact date. WMMA6 will allow date ranges, meaning a narrative can trigger any time within a window. It feels more natural and avoids rigid timing and allows more of a flexible world building. And the editor is now broken into subcategories, making it easier to use. It's faster, more organized, and more intuitive for modders. This mirrors Total Extreme Wrestling's editor, which is widely praised for its flexibility. This new narrative system is far more advanced, allowing database creators to build rich, evolving worlds with realistic storylines and dynamic events. Sorry. In short, the narrative system in WMMA6 is now as powerful as TEWs, allowing multiple triggers, multiple effects, flexible timing, and a much more powerful editor. Compared to WMMA5, it's a massive upgrade that gives modders far more control and makes the game world feel more alive. All right, and now moving on to the next entry. Tied to the previous change, this is out of narrative requirements and effects. So tied to the previous change, a huge number of narrative requirements and effects have been added based on requests from the suggestions forum. This includes often requested effects like being able to force fighters to join/leave teams, to force companies and teams to open/close, having companies change their weight settings or rules, and to force fighter weight changes, plus requirements around a fighter competing. For example, triggering on them getting a specific result, allowing certain effects to be triggered through wins or losses, the size and financial circumstances of a company, whether a company has specific weight classes active, etc., etc. So this feature builds directly from when we were talking about with this upgraded narrative system. Now that narratives are more complex, there's a huge number of new requirements and effects that database makers can use to shape the game world. Some of these additions come from community requests, meaning that these features are players requesting that's been frequent and that's something that's people been wanting for years, at least a while. I should say, but probably years. So what exactly is new? We have many more narrative requirements. They can trigger based on far more conditions, such as a fighter's wins, losses, title fights, specific opponents if they broke a streak or started up a streak, and company circumstances, What's the financial status? What's the company size? The popularity levels. What's the active weight classes? What's the rule sets? And also team circumstances. What's the size of the team? What's the team ranking? What's the team's success? This means narratives are able to trigger in dynamic, realistic ways too. And as we talked about from the previous entry, not just a specific date. And now we have narratives that can do far more effects for when they trigger, including forcing fighters to join or leave teams, forcing companies to open or close, forcing teams to open or close, changing the company rules or weight settings, forcing a fighter to go up or down a weight class, and to adjust popularity, finances, hype, relationships, and so much more. This gives database creators more control on how the world evolves. And as I've been saying in previous videos, the more creative person can get inside a sandbox simulation like the world of mixed martial arts, the better it is for any kind of player. WMMA5's narrative system was simple and mostly cosmetic from what I've seen. WMMA6's system is more powerful, more flexible, and more capable of reshaping the entire game world automatically. So why does this matter? The upgrade allows database creators to build worlds that will actually evolve, real historical changes that we can simulate, dynamic fictional universes we could create with automating fighter movement, controlling the company growth or its collapse, and story-driven events can be created, and we can respond to fire results in meaningful ways. It's one of the biggest leaps in the simulation depth. So in short, the game adds a huge number of new narrative requirements and effects, allowing narratives to trigger based on fighter results, company finances, team rankings, weight classes, and more, allowing narratives to force team changes, company openings and closings, rule changes, weight changes, and other major world shifts. It's a massive upgrade that gives database makers unprecedented control over how the game world evolves. Okie dokie, now we're getting into 43, sort by last fought. As it was requested a lot, the matchmaking screens now have a fifth sorting option by last fought. This was a popular request as it helps avoid situations where a fighter gets forgotten about and goes a long time without a fight. It's a quality of life improvement to the matchmaking screen that many players, including me, honestly have been asking for. What does this do? It adds a fifth sorting option to the matchmaking interface. You can now sort fighters based on how long it's been since their last fight. And I imagine it'll probably still let us know who they last fought and how the results went and all that, those details as well. There might be even more details added into that as well. I guess we'll have to find out. That might be something that Adam Ryland ends up mentioning further on down as well. But um, I don't know. I haven't looked at the um, I haven't looked at the entries a whole lot, but why does this matter? In WMMA5, it was easy for fighters to get overlooked, to get buried within large rosters, or stuck behind more active fighters, um, or not having a fight for months or even years. Unless you manually checked every fighter, someone always ended up slipping through the cracks. Jesus, words are not wording. But World of Mixed Martial Arts 6, the comeback looks to fix that. With sort by last fought, you can instantly see who hasn't fought in a long time, who would end up needing to get booked soon, who's been inactive due to injuries, scheduling, or oversight, and which divisions would end up needing more attention. This makes matchmaking faster, cleaner, and more organized, especially for players who run big promotions or long-term saves. Now, not to say that WMMA 5 didn't have sorting options. They did. There was plenty of sorting options for that, but it seems WMMA 6 is adding more to it, which is great. Fighter visibility in WMMA 5, it was easy to lose track of fighters who end up becoming inactive, but now you can instantly see who hasn't had a fight in a while. And roster management, there's more manual checking in the previous game. But now it's a little bit more automated and more efficient. Matchmaking speed in general was slower for those with larger rosters, and now it's much more intuitive. User requests was frequently asked for on the updates, but now it's finally being implemented. In short, the sort by last fought is a new matchmaking filter that lets us quickly see which fighters haven't competed in a while. And it solves a major WMMA 5 annoyance and makes roster management far easier, especially for the large promotions and the larger databases. Well, now we are going into number 44, automatic region selection. As we were talking about the previous episode with regions and locations, when creating a show, the user can now ask the AI to automatically pick their location based on the same logic a computer-controlled company would use. A lot of people asked for this as a way of speeding up the show making and matchmaking process. Another quality of life improvement designed to make creating shows faster and easier. What does this do? When you create a show in WMMA6, you can now ask the AI to automatically pick the best location for us. The AI uses the same logic that computer-controlled companies would use, meaning it chooses a region based on popularity, market strength, company presence, expected attendance, financial potential, recent performance, and strategic growth. In other words, it would pick the smartest, most profitable regions for any of the shows. And why players want this? Many players, partially me, I didn't really care too much, but I think it's great that they're doing this. Those long running large promotions said that manually choosing regions for every show was just another way to slow. That's another thing that slowed down the tedious matchmaking process. And we had a sorry. They also talked previously about having locations like the venues have existed for Total Extreme Wrestling, and how we can now ask the AI to create fights and shows or just not do it at all. And this feature here speeds up the show creation, reduces repetitive clicking, and also helps new players who aren't necessarily sure which region is best. It keeps your promotion running smoothly. It prevents mistakes like booking a show into a weak region. It's a small button with a big convenience boost. So in WMMA5, every show pretty much required manual selection on show creation and matchmaking, which made it to become tedious over long saves or big schedules. WMMA6 gives us a couple of clicks solution that handles the decision intelligently. In short, the automatic region selection, or ARS, lets the AI choose the best location for our show. Using the same logic as computer-controlled companies, it speeds up matchmaking, reduces repetitive tasks, and fixes a long-standing World of Mixed Martial Arts 5 annoyance. And now going into the last journal entry, we've got intro screens. To bring the game in line with TEW, there is now the option to add database-specific introductory splash screens that appear to the user when starting a new game. This is pretty popular in Total Extreme Wrestling, as it allows database makers to add a bit of color, add explanations and preamble, and generally just set the scene. If any database makers are looking to get this done in advance, the system is identical to Total Extreme Wrestling's, including the dimensions 1000 pixels by 500 pixels. So now we've got database creators to add a splash screen that appears when a player starts a new game. These screens can include artwork, text, explanations, world building, preamble or lore, and mod-specific instructions. This feature is taken directly from Total Extreme Wrestling and works exactly the same way, including the dimensions of 1000 pixels by 500 pixels. Why does this matter? Intro screens let the modders set the tone for their universe, explain important rules or changes, introduce any potential fictional worlds that are being created. You can add color and personality to any of the universes, and it gives players context before they begin the new save. It's a small addition, but it makes starting a new game feel more polished and immersive, which finally brings the series up to Total Extreme Wrestling's standard, giving modders a way to make their databases feel more professional and engaging. So in short, intro screens let database makers add custom splash screens, 1000 pixels by 500 pixels, that appear when starting a new game. They're great for adding color, explanations, and world building, and they bring WMMA6 in line with Total Extreme Wrestling's presentation style. And that ultimately wraps up everything for today. We dug into some powerful behind the scenes upgrades with a fully revamped narrative system to the expansion of requirements and effects that let database makers reshape the game world in ways World of Mixed Martial Arts 5 never could touch. We looked at smart quality of life additions too, like sorting fighters by last default, automatic region selection for faster show creation, and now intro screens where we can go up to TEW's level of presentation polish. And we've still got slightly over half, and we're still only about halfway done with these entries before we head into the actual public beta. So it's kind of crazy that tomorrow marks us being halfway there already. It is very insane to think about. So as you guys can tell, I am very excited heading into World of Mixed Martial Arts 6, the comeback. But thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed these breakdowns, hit the like button. And if you want to see more content involving this or any of my WMMA5 series as I'm doing, or TW series as I'm doing, or I also sometimes do live streams, you can subscribe. And if you have a feature you're most excited to play with, let me know in the comments down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Stay sharp, stay focused, and keep your fighters out of trouble at weigh-ins. And stay the all-stars that you are. Peace out, everyone.